All right, friends. Well, today on the podcast, we have Amanda McGrory on the show. I've wanted to have you on for a long time, and I'm excited we're finally doing it. Welcome to I'll Have Another, Amanda.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here.
I think the first time I was like, why have I never had her on my podcast was when you were on a panel at the Chicago Marathon Expo that I hosted with several athletes that had been in the race before. It was like you, Dina Castor, Constantine, Khalid Kanuchi. I'm trying to think of the others. But anyway, I was like, she's amazing. And I knew that. I knew that you were like really good at the media side of things, but finally making it happen. So yeah, you've been like tearing up the scene in the media side of the sport.
This has been like the most unexpected, super fun retirement side hustle that I didn't expect at all. And I think actually that panel may have been, it was either my first or second Chicago broadcast. So I was
Okay.
like super, super new. I had no idea what to expect. And the Chicago marathon team, Chicago Events Management, is so awesome.
Uh-huh.
Tracy, and who manages the elite athletes, and Carrie Pankowski, the director, called me up and were like, hey, so we know you're retiring, but we have this great broadcast team. They are super dedicated to putting additional cameras and coverage on the wheelchair division, but we need somebody to talk about it. Do you want to do that? And I was like, you guys know I've never done this before, right? And they're like, oh yeah, you'll be fine. And I was like, well, if you are going to pay my way and fly me into Chicago and put me on live TV and see what happens, I am not going to say no to that.
Yes. Well, I feel like, you've been in the press conference interviews and things like that before, and you can e- pretty easily look at someone and be like, oh, they'd be good on camera, or like they know how to talk about this sport. So you proved it yourself without even realizing what you were doing in the moment, I'm sure.
Yeah, I had no idea. And I also had no idea I was going to enjoy it so much. So it's actually turned into kind of a cool little thing that I get to travel around. I've been covering all of the majors in the US. I started working a little bit more with USA Track and Field and covered the Paralympic Games, and truly had no plans of this being part of any of my retirement plan.
Okay, let's talk about your career.
Yeah.
Um, so many Olympics you've participated in, 2008 to 2021. That's 4 Olympic Games. Yes. Talk to us about when in your life you first realized you wanted to be an athlete, a wheelchair athlete, and go to the Olympics.
So I did my very, very first race when I was 5, right after I had gotten out of the hospital for spinal cord injury rehab, and I loved it, and I thought it was super fun. But this is 1991, so we are going way back, pre-internet days. The children's hospital that I went to actually hosted the event, and so it was perfect. It was local. I went, I raced, I had a great time. I didn't have any equipment. I was in my clunky day chair with my big toddler helmet on and no gloves, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Um, I actually, this is a totally separate story,
Go.
but I was told to go to the finish line and stop. And so there's this really funny video of me getting as close as I possibly can to the finish line without crossing it and stopping and waving back to my parents. And my dad's like, go,
Keep
go, you gotta
going.
cross it. And I was like, well, I'm following directions. Um, so anyway, I did that. I didn't really know about adaptive sports in any way beyond the Paralympics, or sorry, beyond this one event. So I had no idea that the Paralympics even existed. And it wasn't until the games came to Atlanta in 1996. So I was
Okay.
10. And my mom used to clip newspaper articles for me and comics and things, and she would leave them by my space where I'd have breakfast in the morning. And so she clipped an article for me about this 14-year-old girl, Leanne Shannon, who
Hmm.
had won gold in the 100-meter and broken the world record at the Paralympic Games. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that. That sounds great. So no real experience. Didn't have a racing chair, didn't have any of the equipment, and I just decided yep, this is what I'm gonna be when I grow up.
Really, at 10 years old?
Yep. So that was the beginning of that.
I read somewhere that you said with your spinal cord injury,
Mhm.
And you correct me if I have this wrong, but that it might have been better happening at a younger age because that ended up being like what you knew. Maybe it would have been harder to adapt to if it happened at an older age. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So I think it's one of those things, like, it's a major life change no matter what.
Huge.
Um, Going from being a non-disabled kid or teenager or adult to becoming a full-time wheelchair user is a huge adjustment regardless. But I talk to people all the time, they're like, "Oh my gosh, that must have been so hard as a kid." And just in my experience talking to people who have experienced spinal cord injuries at
Mm,
different time periods, areas of their lives, it doesn't seem like the worst for it to happen as a kid, just because kids are super versatile, they are super flexible. When I think about friends of mine who were injured later in life and they have a career and they have hobbies and they have a family and they own a home and
mm,
all of a sudden like they can't do their job anymore and their house isn't accessible to them and they're navigating all of this. It's difficult regardless. But I do think that kids are super elastic,
mm.
and they tend to be very resilient when it comes to things like that. And you're absolutely right. Like this is the life that I know.
Mm.
I have a couple memories from being a young kid, and being able to walk, but I don't miss any of that because I don't have any like really strong associations with any of it.
As I asked that question, I was like, this feels like a really insensitive question. And it's already flowing out of your mouth.
No, I mean I think that it's totally fair. It's something that I have talked about quite a bit, and, all you know is your own personal experience, and so that's a big part of it as well, right? Like, all of this
That's
is
right.
personalities and who you are and how you adapt to things and, what's important to you.
Yeah. Do you have siblings?
I do. I am the oldest of 3.
Okay.
So my youngest sister, was paralyzed when I was 5. I have a super rare neuroimmune disorder called transverse myelitis. My sister Meg was about 9 months old at the time
Okay.
when all of this happened. And then my sister Melissa is 10 years younger than me. So she
Okay.
has only known me. I guess really Meg has too, has only known me as a wheelchair user.
Okay. I want to walk back to when you said your mom would like cut out newspaper clippings of these athletes who you end up wanting to follow in their footsteps. I'm so curious on the parent side of things. Like, what were things that your parents did that were helpful to you and that encouraged you to do all the amazing things that you've gone on to do athletically and in your career?
So I think the biggest thing is that they were super supportive. And that was I wouldn't have been able to do a lot of this otherwise,
Mm.
especially because if you think about wheelchair racing and the way that a lot of these programs are set up, if you are not close to a big city, this isn't like playing rec league soccer where there's
Yeah.
20 teams in every town and it's super easy to find those resources and the coaching and the teams. This one takes a little bit more work. And so it took them quite a few years of doing research and asking around. When I was a kid, after that, I did that first race and they lost funding and ended up not holding it again. From then until like 1997, so 6 years for them to find and to figure out like where these little pockets of adaptive sports were located on the East Coast, how I could be a part of them, how to order a racing chair, the equipment that I needed. And so they were really, really instrumental in that piece of it. I was very fortunate. My dad owns his own business, so he had the ability to kind of make his own hours, take time off to drive me into Philadelphia twice a week in the evenings and then on the weekends for practice. But the other piece of it too, and I've talked to my mom about this years later. Right after my injury, when I was still in rehab hospital, they have everyone meet with psychologists,
Mm.
and she was telling me that at that point, they talked to her and my dad and said, the biggest thing, the most important thing you can do is to still continue to challenge her and have high standards for her and treat her as if you would if she didn't have a physical disability.
Hmm.
Because by coddling her and babying her and not giving her any responsibilities, teaching her how to fail, learning to do any of those things that are so important in your development as a kid, as a teenager, up into adulthood, you're doing her a disservice because when it comes time to go to college, to get a job, to do these things independently, she's not going to be able to because she's never going to have that experience. So, as hard as it is to watch her struggle,
Mm.
making her bed and doing dishes and doing all these things, like you're building that level of confidence and you're building that level of independence that is going to be so, so important. And it's something that I talk to families all the time who have
Okay.
younger kids with disabilities about because that is the best gift that they gave me.
Mm. Wow. Do you do a lot of speaking? Like, do you hit the circuit quite a bit to talk to these audiences?
I don't do a ton of speaking. I truly don't have a ton of time between working full time. I started a kids track and field program here in Colorado Springs, so
Oh,
I
cool.
coach a group of kids, and then with all of the broadcasting side of it. But I do talk to schools quite a bit. Every time I fly back to the East Coast, I normally stop by my elementary school
Mm.
that I graduated from. And anytime one of those requests comes in about speaking to a group of kids, it's almost automatically a yes if I can find a way to fit it into my schedule. Because I think that that is really powerful. And I think just the representation piece of it
Mhm.
is so, so important. And meeting, especially kids with disabilities, kids who are wheelchair users, kids who just feel like they don't quite fit in, to see someone else who is different and just have that, whether it is a conscious thing for them or not, have the role model to see that success can look different and looks different for different people.
Mm. Okay, my friend Jenna, her son Jack is in a wheelchair, and I just thought she listens to the podcast, and I thought, "What? He's in 2nd grade. Do you have a message to Jack?" He's
Oh
part
my
of our
gosh.
I volunteer coach our run club at school, and he's part of run club. He comes to run
I
club, and
love that.
his mom helps coach too. Do you have any messages for Jack?
I think that's the message. Not to be afraid to fail and not to be afraid to try new things. And that truly, like the sky's the limit.
Hmm, so good. Okay, so you talked about the woman. What was her name? The role model?
Oh, from when I was a kid,
Yeah.
the newspaper article,
Yes.
Leanne Shannon.
Okay. Leanne Shannon. So now you have been wheelchair racing and been a part of the sport for 20 plus years, and you are that person. You are that person that
It's
there's
so
a
crazy to
mom.
think of that it's been 20 years.
I mean, but there's a mom somewhere that is cutting out clips. And I mean, I guess we don't cut out newspaper clips anymore. She's sending articles online to
She's
her.
sharing Instagram reels.
She's that's it. She's sharing Instagram rules. Um, what is the like responsibility you feel and what does it mean to you to be it's like you were a role model when you were going through it in your career. Now you're retired from that pro scene, but you're on the media side of things. So what does it mean to be the role model?
It was such a big deal to me to have those role models when I was a kid, even though I wasn't it's kind of like I was saying consciously or unconsciously. It was kind of this like unconscious thing that I didn't know that I needed and didn't know that I was
Mm,
looking for. And when I first got involved in an organized adaptive sports program, that was the thing that was most surprising to me. So not only did I have an opportunity for the very first time to meet other kids who
mm,
were young and active and had disabilities, because up until that point, my experience had really been older people who had limited mobility, the kids who were in the special education program at my school that I didn't like. I just didn't feel like I ever met anyone who was like me. So
mm,
that was the first time that I ever saw myself and my experiences reflected in another person. But then on top of that, a lot of the coaches and the volunteers and people who worked with the programs were adults with disabilities. So it was the first time that I ever saw someone who was an adult who used a wheelchair, who drove a car and went to college and had a job and had a family and owned a home and like all of these things that as an 11-year-old, I don't know that I was thinking like, oh, am I going to go to college someday? But it was just kind of this like, and I'm not even sure they have any idea that it had this much of an impact on me or on any of my teammates. But just seeing that, like, those things were a possibility because it's not something that you would see a lot. And even today, if you think about the number of people that you see in public facing positions who have permanent disabilities, whether it's working a checkout counter at Target or your accountant or whatever it is, like, it's still really unusual. And people with disabilities, physical disabilities, are unemployed at double the national rate. They're likely to be underemployed. And I think that just that level of representation and visibility is huge. So all of this is leading me back around to um, why I think it's important for me to be doing what I'm doing. And I think it's that. I don't
Mm.
necessarily feel like it's that I need to be out there and like giving motivational speeches and telling kids like, "Oh, this is you can do this." But I think that just having the opportunity to see me and to see someone who looks like them, who is on TV, who has a successful career, that is getting to do all of these really cool things, that in itself is wildly impactful.
So impactful. Speaking of that, at the Chicago Marathon Expo this year, I forget his name, but there's a man with no arms, no legs who skateboards the entire race. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Oh, yes.
I wish I knew his
I
name.
do
Do you know
not
his
know his name
name?
either.
Okay.
No.
Well, he gave an amazing talk at the expo, and a woman brought her little boy who has the same condition, like no arms, no
Yep.
legs, and she brought him on his skateboard, and the little boy, it, like, almost makes me tear up just remembering seeing the experience because the little boy got on stage with him, and then to see him,
Yeah.
wheel on his skateboard. I think he was trying to break 4 hours or something like that, but it was like, man, how many opportunities does this little boy have to see a grown man in the same situation as him
Yep.
pursuing this
Someone
kinda
who
dream?
Yeah, someone who looks like him and also, like, doing something really cool.
Yeah.
That Yeah, that is so amazing, and, like, I know what a big influence it is because I lived it. I grew up as someone with a disability, but I know that, like, it continues because even today, like, if I see a commercial or a TV show, and even if there's, like, an extra in the background, I'm like, "Oh, that's an amputee, there's a wheelchair user, there's someone, like, with a white cane with a visual impairment."
Yeah.
Like, that is so cool to me anytime I see that level of representation, and so I know people notice, and I know that kids notice.
Yeah, so good. Well, I wanna talk about your training, um,
Yes.
because so to me, the depth as far as distance is so wild to me. And you entered your first Olympics cycle being a world champion and the or world record holder in the 5,000.
Yes.
And so I am so interested to hear about like the difference in how you train for these like shorter distance races and on a track versus
Yeah.
a marathon, especially a marathon like Boston where you're like up and down and all those things.
So, truly, training for hills was always the hardest part being in
Okay.
Illinois because they just don't exist.
Yeah.
We get a ton of like headwind, tailwind work, but actually finding like a big hill to climb was one of the biggest challenges. Um, And I remember doing, like, climbing repeats on overpasses
Oh
when I
gosh.
was a student training in Illinois because that was, like, the best, steepest hill that we could find, and we would just climb the overpass, go down the other side, climb back, and just do repeats back and forth over these overpasses, because it's flat, it's farmland. It is a
Yeah.
great place to go for miles and miles, but if you're trying to get some different terrain in, that is tricky for sure.
So good
But
Chicago
we did
training.
Yeah, exactly. It's perfect. Perfect for Chicago, perfect for Berlin, perfect for any of the flat marathons, not great for Boston or
Uh-huh.
New York.
Uh-huh.
Um, so that was a challenge always for those races was trying to find a way to get some of that hill climbing experience in. But a lot of our work throughout the entire season, even leading up to the marathons, was on the track because a
Okay.
huge amount of it is off of max speed.
Okay.
And so the two things that were always major focuses for the University of Illinois and for Adam Blakeney was max speed and then base building. And so the winter season, we would spend a lot of time indoors on rollers, similar to like a cycle trainer, a treadmill, and we would do all of our work there just because it is too cold, too snowy to get outside. And then as soon as we would get time on the track and time out on the road, we would kind of split up during the week. And so there was always a one or two long rides, long pushes, 20 plus miles,
Okay.
especially when we're getting deep into the marathon season. Um, But in between would always be a lot of track work and always be a lot of speed work. Because I think one of the things that's really interesting about wheelchair racing, and you see this at every distance, from the longer sprints on the track all the way up to the marathons and road racing, is that it's really dynamic. And I think part of that is because being on wheels, we are way more affected by external
Hmm.
circumstances than you are as a runner.
Okay.
So headwinds really slow us down, tailwinds really make us go faster. Turns are a challenge, and learning how to turn and corner at speed in a racing chair. There are athletes who are great at climbing. There's athletes who are great at coasting. Um, but just to kind of illustrate the differences there, my average speed over the course of a marathon would be somewhere between probably around 15 and a half to 16 and a half miles an hour. If I got hit with a really, really strong headwind, even on a flat, that could drop to 10, 11
Wow.
miles an hour. And max speed down some of those hills, thinking about like the start of the Boston
Oh my
Marathon
gosh.
and some of the like really hilly courses, it's not unusual to hit mid to high 30s. Some of the men who were just bigger and heavier can get up into the high 40s, low 50s on some
Is
of
that
those
like
hills.
so scary?
It is terrifying. Yeah, and
Like,
it's a big that's like honestly, the learning how to climb a hill and practicing climbing a hill is a big part of hill training, but for wheelchair racers, learning how to coast and trust yourself at those speeds is another piece of it. Because if you
yeah.
think about like riding a racing chairs are different than bikes and we don't have gears, but for someone who's never been in a racing chair, if you think about coasting really fast down a hill on a bike and all you have
Mhm.
are your like cable brakes, you can't slam those on. And you can only slow down so much. And so learning how to trust yourself, how to handle those curves, how to handle different road conditions, that's a big piece of it. And so all of these, if you're strong at cornering, if you have good overspeed, if you're a great climber, if you're great at cresting hills, like all of those things come into play. And you see it a lot, especially when you have a pack of wheelchair racers together. You can see all those lead changes and
Mm.
the attacks. And then a lot of times it starts right off the bat. The gun goes off and people are already attacking based off of what their strengths are. New York
Mhm.
City Marathon starts on the Verrazano Bridge. Your climbers are ready to go. They are trying to drop the rest of the pack in that moment from the cannon fire.
Wow. What is your favorite like passing tactic and like where do you find yourself making moves?
I love a slingshot.
Okay, tell me more.
I love a slingshot effect. So this is my favorite thing always to do on the track, especially for some of the like shorter distance races that I would do, the 800, the 1500. Um, Wheelchair racers tend to have a little bit of a wider range with distances than
Yeah.
runners do. And some of that is because a lot of the tactics are similar, the speeds are similar. The curve for running, you take off really fast and then you kind of drop off. But wheelchair racers hold pretty steady. So
Okay.
your average speed for most people over the course of a 1500 and a 5000 and a marathon doesn't really, it kind of flattens out. It doesn't drop that much.
It's wild.
And so you see a lot of athletes who are really good at all of those different distances. But anyway, I'm sidetracking myself
Yeah.
here,
Love
getting
it.
deep into the wheelchair racing like theory.
Love it.
Um, but as someone who focused a lot on longer distance races and who doesn't have a lot of good sprint speed, I was never great at starts. And
Okay.
so for like a 1500 or a 5000, instead of probably a 1500, 800, instead of trying to get myself up at the very front of the pack off the start, I knew I wasn't going to be there because I'm competing against other people who are really, really strong off the line. And everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, and that was
Right.
never one of my strengths. My favorite move would be to wait until about 200 meters left to go. And so not really like a sit and sprint, but making sure I was in the right position and I would drop off the back of the pack and give myself kind of a wind up. So by the time I passed everyone, I was at 100% full sprint speed. You get a little bit of a slingshot effect coming around just the way that
Uh-huh.
that aerodynamics and the wind works. And so I would set it up with the tailwind and then in theory would be going fast enough when I passed the rest of the pack that by the time they had time to react or realized what was happening, then I would be across the finish line.
Oh my gosh. What happens when people are like, onto your tactic. They're like, we know she's going to wait. We know she's going to wait. I mean, it's like in the running events when you're like, okay, this person is a really good kicker
Mhm.
at the end. So if I want to beat them, I got to make sure I'm far enough ahead that that's not going to happen. Did you ever notice people trying to like do that to you, like get further ahead at the beginning for that reason?
So sometimes, and all of it is about, we're talking about track racing is where this is the most effective. So you're talking
Yeah.
about track racing. You have to decide who out of those 8 to 12 women is your biggest threat.
Uh huh.
And everyone is going to have different strengths. And so if we're talking about someone like Tatiana McFadden, she is going to take off as hard as she can from the start. And if you don't stay with her, she's gone. So
Yeah.
is that your bigger challenge? Or is it waiting to see someone like me who is going to hang back a little bit and then do the attack off the back? Or is it
Yeah.
someone like Susanna Scaroni, who might not be the fastest starter, but she's going to pull every lap and attempt to burn you out the whole way through the race? So what is your tactic? How are you going to defend against that? And
Mm.
which of those three people do you think is the biggest threat there? And then this goes, across the board for every other athlete that's out on the track as well.
If you had to choose, what's
Mhm.
the distance that you have the most fun with racing?
I love the 5,000 meter on the track.
Okay.
It
Love
was
it.
my first world record. It's my only gold medal. Um, it is fast, really fast, but it's long enough that one, it's long enough that you can make a mistake and recover.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's
yeah.
also long enough that it starts to get really interesting with people kind of putting some of those strengths and weaknesses and tactics to the test. And I've always loved that part of wheelchair racing. I've loved figuring out like where I need to be, where I should be, what other people are going to do, and just kind of like playing that game of being the smartest racer out there, figuring out like what my strength was going to be and what I could do better than every other person out on the track, and then putting it to the test.
Wow. Okay, so you Beijing 2008,
Mhm.
London 2012,
Yep.
Rio 2016,
Yeah.
Tokyo 2021,
Yeah.
and then being an analyst in 2024 in Paris.
Yes.
Okay, first question is, did one of those Paralympics mean more to you than another? Like, is there one that you're like, I wouldn't trade that moment for anything?
So my it's Rio. Rio is my games for
Okay,
sure.
tell me more.
Which is actually really interesting because I came home with more medals from Beijing and I came home with a gold medal from Beijing. But I was also 22
Yeah.
and I was super young. And up until that point, I had never really been tested in my career. So it took me a little while to make my first team, but it was just kind of this like gradual build up and up and up. I got to Beijing. I went into that 5,000 as the world record holder. I had had a ton of success on the road. I had won some major marathons. And basically, like, in the way only like a 22-year-old can feel about this, I was like, well, of course I'm going to come home with medals because this is what I do. Like, yes, I am going to win because I win. And in the, like, least, like that sounds, like, wildly, like, cocky and
Yeah,
overconfident, and
yeah.
it was just kind of this, like, yeah, like, I know that I can do this, this is what I've been doing, and so it was a huge shock for me when I came home empty-handed from London.
Mm,
And you asked about earlier about people, like, gauging their race off of someone else and trying to
mm.
defend against those tactics. And that is what happened to me in my 5,000 in London. There was an athlete that I had never seen before. I had never raced against before, and she glued herself to my back wheel and was waiting for that attack to happen. And I let her get in my head. And I
Hmm.
completely forgot about everything that I was supposed to be doing, all of my race plan, all of my tactics, and was so focused on like trying to shake this woman from the back of me that I ended up finishing ninth, I think,
Wow.
which was a huge shock because coming as the like defending Paralympic champion, two-time world record holder in this event, I was just like, it felt like a given to me that I was going to come home with a medal in that event, no matter what it was. And it really set the tone of the entire games for me that I made this big mistake off the start and I just never recovered from it.
Hmm.
And coming back from London, it took me a couple of years to like figure things out. I was super frustrated and I felt like I had this incredible like meteoric rise and was at the top for so long and having so much success. And then after London, it felt like no matter what I did, I just couldn't get back there. So it was about 6 months, 8 months before Rio, and went and talked to my coach at Illinois, Adam Blakeney, and was like, look, I'm frustrated. And I know that performing like I am right now, I'm gonna make the team, but I'm not gonna have a chance at winning a medal,
Hmm.
and I don't wanna do that. So, what can we do? Um, and I made one of the, like, riskiest and probably, ill-advised decisions of my career to scrap everything. I
What does that mean? What did you scrap?
Everything. Truly. I changed my chair position. I changed my stroke mechanics. I changed my diet. I had been a pescatarian and vegetarian for a long time. I went back to eating meat. I had been focusing a lot on training and working part time. I applied to grad school and I started going to classes, working 25 hours a week, like this super crazy busy schedule, like absolutely everything you can think of. We were just like, let's throw it all out
Hmm.
and start over from the absolute beginning.
Wow. And did you feel like a lot is like, I got a lot betting on this plan working out? Like, how did you process that?
I really felt like I didn't want to I didn't want to go to the games knowing that I wasn't at my best.
Yeah.
And all of the things that I was doing, and probably realistically some of those changes should have happened sooner.
Hmm.
But it's hard and it's scary as an athlete to make big changes. And I had to get to the point where I was at the bottom, where I felt like I'm not performing. I don't know what else to do. I feel like I'm showing up and I'm putting in the hours and I'm putting in the miles and it's just not translating for some reason. And so the overall decision was I'm going to risk it because if I am performing as I am right now without making any of these changes, I'm not happy anyway.
Hmm.
And so at least if I make a change or a lot of changes and I try something new and it doesn't work, I'm no worse off than I was before. But possibly, maybe some of this will refresh me from not only like a physical standpoint of like making these updates, changing my training, but also I think from this like mental standpoint of just letting go of the past 4 years before that and being ready to move on to the next phase of my career. And I remember things pretty quickly started improving. So that was great. And I was feeling much more confident. I was putting up times and hitting speeds that I had never hit in my career before. So I was like, all right, this is a good thing. Like I'm feeling great about this choice. And I remember watching the Rio Olympics because I was still home. The Olympics happened about 3 weeks before the Paralympics. So closing ceremonies of the Olympics happen. There's a village refresh, then all the Paralympians come in to the same village, same venues. But I was sitting at home watching the Olympics, and I remember like anytime like someone set an Olympic record, they won a medal, like I was just crying, just like absolutely bawling my eyes out. And I was like, if I go to Rio and have a chance to be up there again on the podium
Hmm.
and win a medal, like I am going to savor this moment for what it is worth because I didn't feel like I really appreciated it when I was in Beijing because I was young and I was so
Mm-hmm.
confident. It was just
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, this is my career. This is who I am. It's what I do. And it wasn't until having that like super disappointing experience in London that I was like, oh, this is one, not a given, and
Mm-hmm.
also two, like a very big deal to happen. And if I get the chance to do this again and be up on the podium, like I am going to appreciate that moment in a way that 22-year-old me, 30-year-old me was much more emotionally equipped to handle it than 22-year-old me.
So then in Rio, tell us about what goes down.
So Rio was let's start with the trials for Rio.
Okay.
So, Team USA, especially the wheelchair racers, the women, were so strong leading into Rio. For our trial for Team USA to make the team for the 5,000, we had 5 of the 7 fastest women in the world
Wow.
racing for 3 spots because you can only take
Wow.
3 athletes. So, like, just knowing that is how strong the team was. If all 5 athletes were able to make the team, we would have likely gone 1 through 5 at the games. And
Wow.
so crazy, like, absolutely incredible. So we go through trials. I make it for those distance events, and we're getting ready to run our 1,500. I'm talking to our coach. So Adam also came over as the coach for Team USA, but specifically because he had so many athletes from the University of Illinois who trained with him every day he was there. And the 3 women who qualified for this 1,500 were all his athletes. It was me, Tatiana McFadden, and then our teammate Chelsea McClammer. And he was like, "Look, I'm not going to tell you how to beat each other,
Hmm.
but I'll tell you how to sweep the podium."
Okay.
So, and we had a talk, and he's like, "Look, this is how it has to work, and this is what every single person has to do."
Wow.
And like, this is how the start's going to work. This is what the next piece is going to be. And you have to trust each other and you have to do it. Because if you don't put yourself out there and take the risk and rely on your teammate doing their part of the plan, it's not going to happen. And so we all had our little conversation and we're like, do you want to do it? And decided, like, okay, let's go ahead and do it. And it was such a cool thing to be a part of
Hmm.
because it was every single piece as it was laid out. Chelsea took off, and then Tatiana came from the back, and then I closed the group. And then coming into the finish after 3 3/4 laps, it was the 3 of us in a line at the front. And it was the coolest thing I have ever been a part of.
Oh.
And
Oh.
so, like, being on the medal stand, I was, first of all, like, I was so emotional about this to begin with, where I was like, I just want to win another medal. Being on the medal stand with like 2 of my teammates and training partners, with like 3 American flags going up and the
Yes.
national anthem playing, like, such a cool experience. So we did that. And then, like, 3 4 days later, the same group of 3, Tatiana, Chelsea, and myself, were running the 5K. And same thing, went and talked to Adam, and he was like, "Do you wanna do it again?" And we were like, "Do you think we can?" And so same thing, he set up a plan and was like, You have to trust the plan, you have to trust each other, you've gotta do this. You're all strong enough." And same thing, 3 days later, same 3 athletes swept the podium again, which was such a cool thing to be a part of.
Wow. Gosh, it's wild to think how, different the experiences can be in the same
Mhm.
distances, in the same, like, type of venue, going in it, like, with a different mentality at a different
Yep.
age, with a different set of teammates.
Yes.
Wow, so special. Um, I always wonder how people figure out, like, "I'm ready to hang it up." Like, "I'm ready after this to be done with this part of my career."
I can tell you that you wake up one day and you know.
Really?
Like, that is 100% it. There is no question. There is
Huh,
just like, it's time to move on.
really?
So I felt it coming for a little while and decided after Rio, actually, that Tokyo was going to be my last games because it was really important to me to be in control of that, to be in
Yeah.
control of my retirement. And I've seen so many athletes, especially as they get older, be pushed out for so many different reasons, whether it's age or injury or speed or a focus on developing like younger athletes. And I was like, I want to be the one to like walk away and be like, this
Mhm.
is it. And so that was number one. But then everything, went a little bit sideways. Um, so I graduated from grad school in 2018, immediately moved to Colorado Springs to work for Team USA, and spent 6 months interning as a processing archivist at the Team USA archives. And when that was finished, moved back to Illinois to focus on training. And I had taken a little bit of time off for an injury, but came back in 2019 and was really at the best that I'd ever been in my entire career. Running super fast times, was super, super strong, training with that same group from 2016, plus Susanna Scaroni, plus like all of these up and coming women who are now like at the very top. And it was just such a great thing to be a part of. And then all of the COVID shutdowns happened.
Mhm.
And I thrive in a team environment and that level of accountability and working. It's why I spent my entire career at the University of Illinois working with Adam Blakeney and the group there, is because I know that that is one of those things that I need to be at my best. So I struggled a little bit with training on my own and being indoors and just navigating everything that was going on. I had been working for a record label and I was doing that remotely. Um, not really ever seeing anyone. So yeah, you know about it. It was a weird time for everybody.
Yeah.
But right about the same time that the games were postponed, I was called by a recruiter at the US Olympic and Paralympic Committee and asked to apply for the archivist position
Okay.
because it had recently become available. The archivist had announced her retirement and there was a vacancy there. So, around the same time that I should have been flying to Tokyo for my fourth Paralympic Games, I and my dog were moving to Colorado Springs to become the archivist for Team USA. Um, and I almost didn't go to Tokyo.
Hmm.
I had a long talk with my coach, with some of my friends before accepting the job, and it was too good of an opportunity to turn down. I had planned on retiring after Tokyo anyway. I didn't really feel like I had anything left to prove. And one of the great things about working with Adam Blakeney and being part of that program is that I think that he is the Paralympic Games, being a professional athlete, all of that is just kind of a stop along the way in
Hmm.
the best way to him. Like
Mhm.
he thinks it's important. He's very much dedicated to like lifelong health and fitness, but also is aware that like going to the Paralympics, winning a medal is not the end all be all for anyone. And that you need to know who you are outside of sport. And so having this long conversation with him and talking to him, he was like, I don't know why. Why would you not take this? Why would you not
Hmm.
do this? Like what what are you going to gain from turning down this incredible opportunity? So I said yes. I moved to Colorado, and I only actually went to trials for the 2020 Tokyo Games happening in 2021 because of a like contractual obligation with one of my sponsors. So in my contract that I had signed with them, it said that I needed to go to X number of events, including trials for the
Mhm.
Paralympic team. And I didn't think that I was going to make it. And I ended up being named like one of the last people. There were like 51 slots, and I think that I was number 49 on that like long list. So like just squeaked through. And then I had this new like existential crisis because my whole plan was, well, I'm going to go to the Tokyo Games at the absolute like top of my career, peak
Yep.
physical fitness, and I'm just going to like destroy the competition and mic drop
Like,
and
I'm
be
out.
like, "Peace, I'm out." And then I was like, "Okay, well, I didn't think I was gonna make the team, and now I made the team, and do I go knowing that I'm not at my best and I'm not going to win a medal?" And I decided to, and I'm really glad that I did because it was kind of this fun little, like, victory lap for me.
Oh.
Having the experience of going and competing, and it was the first time in my career that I wasn't there with this intense pressure to perform at my absolute best. And so it was bittersweet knowing that it was going to be the last time, but also like kind of nice to just tie everything up really really neatly at the end of my career and be like this is it, this is the last time I'm going to be here and I'm just going to enjoy this experience for what it is.
This was the party.
Yeah, a weird party because I wasn't allowed to talk to anyone and we had to spit it in a tube twice a day, but it was fine. People party in different ways.
What a strange experience to be a part of.
Yes.
I've talked to
So
so many athletes that are like, "That was the weirdest experience," and especially if that was your first Olympics or
yes.
Paralympics.
Yep.
Like, what a different way to experience that for the first time.
Talking to so many athletes because being a part of the broadcast team for Paris, I interviewed a ton of people on the US track and field team, a lot of them that I didn't really know super well. And I would say like a handful of them competed in Tokyo, which, I didn't get a chance to get to know them in Tokyo
Right.
because we were very strongly encouraged not to talk to anyone.
Right.
So talking to that whole group of people and just hearing like how excited they were to have this experience of like going to a games where there are going to be people in the stands where they're going to get this opportunity to like interact with people from other countries and like that was really really cool and then getting the chance to just watch it and be a part of it was amazing.
So I have noticed as a fan of the sport, the coverage for Paralympics has been, I feel like 2024 was like better than I've ever seen it. I mean,
Yes.
I certainly was paying attention more. I've been hosting this podcast since 2016. I just feel like it was so much more mainstream than it's ever been. My kids were into watching it. So, do you feel like that being on the inside?
I do, and I know that I can say, like, from the broadcast standpoint and being a part of the road racing world, and then also, like, working for Team USA and being a part of the US Olympic and Paralympic Committee, it's something that we have been working on
Good.
a lot internally. Just elevating Paralympic sport and what that looks like, because I feel like for the longest time, there was a reluctance from any of these major media outlets to spend a lot of time or effort or money covering the Paralympics with the argument that there wasn't a fan base. But
Hmm.
it kind of leads into this catch 22 where there isn't a fan base because people don't know that it exists. And so figuring out how to find that balance of we need to like increase the coverage and elevate the level of Paralympic sport in the US to bring more people into the movement and to build more fans and then let this kind of like snowball and grow naturally. And that's what I've seen a lot more of. And being a part of the broadcast, especially for the World Marathon Majors, and just looking at how well all of that has been done throughout the World Majors Marathon like circuit is really impressive. And I think that it is a good model for what Paralympic sport can be. And if you think about all of the races, the the prize money has gone up, the level of support for athletes has gone up, which are two really, really big things because these are expensive sports and traveling is expensive. But also with integrated press conferences and media coverage
Yeah.
and all of these opportunities, not only does it build in new fans of the Paralympic movement, but you're bringing over crossover fans who are already fans of running and are seeing this like new opportunity to find something like a little bit different to learn about to be a part of. You're seeing this like level of like camaraderie between athletes who see each other all the time and are doing these interviews. And then also like the media coverage, the number of messages I get via like social media after races and events of people being like, I didn't know anything about wheelchair marathoning, and this was such a cool thing to see. I popped the Boston Marathon on at 7 a.m. as background noise, and I'm a new fan of this sport. Like, that's such a cool thing to be a part of. And I think it's something that we can use to continue, like, building off of that model to continue increasing Paralympic sport awareness and coverage and just overall representation in the US.
Okay, so this is like an internal job. Like you guys are working really hard to make this happen. I don't know if this is the right question to ask, but is there anything on the athlete side of things that the athletes can do to help promote it even more? You know how like to get a sponsorship these days it's like
Yeah.
your social media presence and things like that, sometimes depending on the brand, ends up being equally as important as your, like, place on the podium or whatnot. Talk to me a little bit about what that looks like on the para side of sport. Is it the same?
I think that's one of those things that has been changing, and I also think it is good and bad just like everything else, right? And I'm not great with my social media. I never have been. I don't post a lot, and it's always been one of my weaknesses. But if you look, there are some Paralympians who have done great jobs building brands and building platforms here and just kind of creating this like organic level of awareness and bringing people into their stories. And I think that that's a big part of it. I think that just finding a way to be relatable,
Mm.
and getting people interested in who you are and what you do and why they should care about Paralympic sport is such a big thing. And we're seeing that continue to grow, and we're seeing more opportunities for Paralympians with some of these like top level sponsors being a part of some of these events beyond just competing and going to the Paralympic Games. And realistically, it has a long way to go. There's a lot of challenges in the United States. Something we talk about all the time, and I've talked about a lot, is just our oversaturation of sports and superstars.
Mm.
Even thinking about running in the United States, we are, I mean, it's pro sports teams here, right? It's
Yeah.
the NFL, it is the NBA. And if you are not one of those major leagues, major teams, it's hard to figure out where you can find your niche. And that's a challenge across the board. It is a challenge for women's sports. It is a challenge for some of the just like lesser known sports. Thinking about like the Olympic and Paralympic program, things like badminton and fencing, and they just don't have the fan bases, and it's so difficult to compete here because there's so many pro sports teams. So I mean, I think social media is definitely something that works in favor of people who spend that time building their brand and learning how to tell their story. But it's got to be more than just that too, and it's got to come from some of it has to come from the top down.
Totally. Yeah, that it's maybe a worn out conversation, but the social media piece is just it's so hard because some people just like you don't want to share everything. Like you want to get to work and you want to work your butt off and do your craft and you don't want to give that much of like your life out,
Mhm.
Or maybe you do it well without giving so much of your personal life out, but like that's not your jam. Like you don't want to be
Yeah,
creative in
yeah,
that
for
way.
sure.
It's so
And it's not.
hard.
Yeah, it is definitely not a. It's not a skill set that every person has either. Like I am. I can talk forever.
Yeah.
I'm good on the broadcast. I can be in front of the camera. I have absolutely no interest like talking to my phone and being like, this is the day in the life of the archivist for Team USA. Like it's just not my thing. And like for
We're gonna
people who it
challenge
is,
you to one of those, Amanda.
oh my gosh. I think about it all the time and I'm like, I do so much cool stuff and I see so much cool stuff. Like I could do this. And then I think about it and I'm like, I don't want to do that.
No, I
I don't
know.
want to like live my whole life behind my screen.
No, it takes away, like, the fluidity of, like, actually living.
Yeah. But some people are so good at it and you
I
don't even
know.
notice. And it feels very much like, and I don't know if it's an
I
innate thing, if it's a learned thing.
Yeah, I wonder with these people that do, like, the get ready with me's or, like, day in a life or I've been seeing a lot of, like, 4 a.m. to 9 a.m., what my life
Yep.
looks like, and I'm like, so you're, like, taking your video around with you and recording every single little piece that you do. Maybe they just have, like, a record day once a week where they knock it all out. I
Yeah.
don't know,
Like that's
but
the only way I can think. Like you've got to, some of it has to be staged because I think of that too. And I'm like, I don't have time for that in the morning.
you gotta separate, and I wanna just separate, like, living with actually, like,
I know.
sharing every piece of my life with the community online. There's, like, this
Yeah.
balance there. So,
I think
yeah.
it's hard too because that's kind of become the expectation too, right? Like if you're going to build your platform
Yep.
and it's now no longer just like posting photos of cool places you've been or things you've done, it's actual like video and editing work and giving people this like inside look into who you are and what your life is like, and it's a lot to ask of people.
Yeah. Reality show on your personal Instagram page, pretty
Yeah,
much.
exactly.
Um, okay, so tell me what your favorite thing about the broadcast is, and I wanna know I don't know if your hot takes on who, like, the up and comers that aren't being talked about enough that we should be watching on the scene.
Ooh. All right. So I have to say, like, my favorite part about the broadcast is just getting to like big time nerd out and talk wheelchair racing.
Love it.
Because I think that's the most fun to get super deep into like the equipment and the strategy and like all of that piece. Like, I
So
love it.
good.
I could do it for hours and hours and hours. And it's been from a like selfish perspective, it's been such an awesome way to stay involved in the sport. Like That was one of my big fears retiring was
Hmm.
how I was going to feel. Like, not from, I mean, kind of from an identity perspective, but like I knew who I was without wheelchair racing. I knew that like I was going to be okay. I have other interests, I have other passions, but just feeling like I put so much time and effort and energy into like increasing Paralympic awareness in the United States and everything that I put into helping build this sport and watching it continue to like grow and develop without me.
Mhm.
That's the part that I thought was going to be really hard.
Yeah.
But finding a new way to be a part of that and stay involved and engaged has been amazing. So that's what I love about the broadcast. And I get to go to all of these races now and like do all the things I used to do, see all of my friends and hang out. And then I don't have to do 26.2 miles at the end of the weekend.
Okay, I know I asked you the up and comer question, but insert
Yes.
question here. What does your, like, workout situation look like these days?
All right. So without making this super long, when I retired, the first thing that I discovered was that I didn't know how to work out.
Oh, interesting. Because you were mostly just you're like, "Whatever the training is, I'm just doing the
I
training."
know how to, well, I know how to train. I know how to train to do a marathon at world record pace.
Yeah.
And I remember having a conversation like pretty early on after my retirement with my boyfriend about like, I just don't really know like what to do. And I don't want to get up at 4 a.m. to go to the gym so I can be at work. And he's like, Amanda, you don't have to do 20 miles a day anymore. And it was like, well, what's the point then?
Yeah.
And he's like, this isn't what normal people do.
Health and
And so it
wellness.
was this, yeah. So it was this whole journey of like figuring out how to work out,
Yeah.
how to like not train as a Paralympian, but just like do a like 10-mile cycling workout or whatever it was. So I actually do a lot of I've been doing a lot of like Fitness Plus and Peloton workouts
Uh-huh.
for the stationary bike, and I convert them to use them for a hand cycle. So that's what I do mostly. And I try to work out 3 to 4 days a week. It feels good. It's something that
Yeah.
I missed doing, but I've got to say like honestly, the desire to get back in my racing chair and to do a marathon, it
Mm-mm.
is not there. And that is all right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that even, athletes who never competed at the professional level can resonate with this because, um, I've kinda transitioned out of marathoning myself, and, like, I've had to get to this place where I'm like, a 45-minute workout is, like that's a good workout, like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yes.
and it's like, even a 30-minute jog or a 45-minute walk, like, whatever it looks like for you is, like, that's actually probably, like that's what we were meant to do. We weren't necessarily meant to train at these, like, crazy
No.
extreme levels for years on end for our entire lives.
Yeah,
Um,
we were definitely not designed to do 150 miles a week for 20 years.
yeah, and it's the moving my body for the satisfaction, the mental health, just
Yeah,
all the things beyond what a performance gives me that that matters the most. And so,
for sure. I've been
yeah.
asked so many times, like, "Are you gonna keep doing marathons for fun?" And I'm like, "Well, they're not, so no." But also, like, that's I think it brings up a really good point that I don't know what the challenge for me would be there.
Yeah.
I know that I can do it. I've finished over 100 of them. And
Yeah.
I also know if I'm putting in like the time and the effort, I know how fast I can go. So I think I'm just going to be annoyed for 26 miles knowing that I could go so much faster.
Yeah, 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 but I'm not trained for that, so I'm not gonna be able
Exactly.
to. Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so talk to us about the scene. Who are some up and comers that we should be, like, keeping our eyes on?
Yes. So, I mean, especially if we're talking about like the lead up to LA, I have to give some shout outs to my
Yes.
teammates over
Okay.
at the University of Illinois. Um, Not really an up and comer, but Susanna Scaroni like is on the top right now. She is unbeatable. She is so strong. I think we're going to see quite a few people retire after LA,
Okay.
but it's going to be this like the games are in the US, friends and family can come. So she's one to watch for sure. And then on the men's side there as well, Brian Seaman. Um, Won his first medals in Paris, double bronze. He is also like it is all speed ahead through LA for him. So expecting some strong performances there as well. And then on the new side for up and comers, um, on the for the marathon distance, it's really unusual to see someone new come in because a lot of times they like slowly build their way up. But two big surprises from the past like year or two. The big one being Catherine de Brunner, who is just like out there taking names. She's been racing for a long, long time. I remember talking to her when she was like a teenager in high school, and she just kind of exploded onto the marathon scene. She is one absolutely to watch. And then Tomoki Suzuki, who is still going for his like first really big win. He's won Tokyo, I think, twice. He hasn't won another major, but he is on the podium and like he's been closing in for the past couple of years. So I think that those are my like people that I'm most excited to continue watching. And especially on the women's side, like this group of women is running times they're so fast. That's it. That's all I can say. Like, this sport is getting so fast. I
So
don't know how
fast.
much faster it can be. But it is amazing. And that's been something so fun to watch, especially with that group in particular. In the US, Susanna, and then Tatiana McFadden, and from Switzerland, Manuela Schar and Catherine de Brunner. Like, they are continuing to push the pace in a way that, like, it's really exciting. I have never seen anything like this before.
Does any of that have to do with, is there like advancements in the chairs that people are racing in? And then talk to
Yep.
me about the fueling side of things. Like, in the latter half of your career, did you start fueling way more often than at the beginning?
So I think that it's one of those things that across the board has just improved so, so much.
Yeah.
It wasn't until probably like 2015, 2016 that we even started regularly working with the nutritionist.
Wow.
And then so that's one of those things, and then if we're talking about just, like, training, in the way that like that has improved and increased over the past 10, 15, 20 years. And then similarly to running, we're in the super shoe era of wheelchair
Yeah.
racing. We are
Yeah.
in the super chair era. And when you're looking at these top athletes, they're in these carbon fiber frames made by major corporations. So up until like the mid 2000s, most racing chairs were made by like offshoots of medical supply companies. um there was science behind it, but I mean, not Formula 1, Honda, like
Wow.
top car, airplane, motorcycle manufacturer R&D behind them. And so just looking at like the improvements and increases that have been made in technology, like that's another one of those things. And it's like the shoe in that you're not going to if you're not a top guy, if you're not one of the contenders, you're not gonna pop them on and all of a sudden be this, like, incredible athlete that you weren't before. But it's those little changes that make a big
Mhm.
difference, right? And so thinking about, like, the Honda chair, so I finished my career with Honda. Susanna and Catherine and Manuela Schar are all racing for Honda now. It's just a little bit better.
Yeah.
It carries speed a little bit better. It rolls a little bit better. It's balanced a little better, so it corners a little bit better. You put slightly less effort in to go slightly faster, and over the course of 26 miles, that makes a huge difference. And so we're seeing all of these like little gains and little updates coming from this like super high level of technology, which also brings us into a separate conversation of like, what is that doing to the gap? Those racing chairs retail for 25, 35, $45,000.
Wow.
They need to be replaced every year or 2 years.
Wow.
This is like buying a luxury car every year.
Yes.
And if you are an up and coming athlete, or if you don't have access to that level of technology, like that gap's continuing to grow. And it used to be you could get away with a lot if you were super fit and had good training and had good chair control, that you could make up some of those differences. But we're starting to see this like continue to grow, and this top level of athletes who has access to the best nutritionists and training and equipment. And wind tunnel access and all of these things that cost tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars, that's continuing to grow. And there's a level of concern because I don't know what it's going to do to the sport in the long term.
Yeah, the equity there, like, that's
Absolutely.
yeah, wow, that's a big, big thing. I mean, that is expensive. I was just thinking, do you guys have, like, I don't know that people new to the sport think of it this way, and maybe I'm just, like, super old school, but, like, for instance, like, Dina Castor's American record, it's like all of that is like pre-super shoes, and
Yeah.
so, like, not to diminish what Kira did or what Emily Sisson did, but it's like, to me, that record still just, like, always holds, like, she held it for so long. It was
Yeah.
pre-super shoes. It was pre, like, fueling every 25, 30 minutes, and so,
Yep.
do you guys have similar thoughts in the wheelchair division?
I think we're starting to see that, especially over the course of the marathon. And when you're looking at some of these, I mean, that's what I'm talking about, was talking about earlier about just like how fast these fields are getting. And you're starting to see that more and more with the way that the packs are breaking apart really
Mm.
early. And it
Oh.
used to be like it was pretty common, especially in a race like Chicago that's relatively flat, that you would see in the wheelchair racing fields these groups of like 10 or 15 men coming in all together with this like super
Yeah.
exciting sprint finish. And we're starting to see like times get faster and faster consistently. And we haven't seen the world records drop by a crazy amount of time, but for a while it was the women's world record is at 134 and it's over here. And
Okay.
most of the time when the women are racing, they're running 145, 142, low 140s. So there's still this pretty big gap. And it's now unusual for the top women to be finishing above 140. Like
Wow.
all of the bulk of the performances are getting closer and closer and closer to that world record all the time.
Okay.
Regardless of race course, regardless of, and
Huh.
that's something that's very, very new. Like those things, New York was significantly slower than Boston just because of like the terrain. And we were seeing these like, oh, well, you're going to run in the 150s in New York because it's a really hard course. But if you have a tailwind in Boston, you could run in the 130s. Now it's just kind of like, oh, the women will finish about 137, 138. Like that's just where
Just
they are.
known.
Yep.
Wow. That's wild. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we're out of time. We're out of time. Um, let's wrap within a podcast. What is something professionally or personally you have not done that you would like to do?
Oh,
You've done so much.
I have done so much. So I think this is probably just because I am in Olympics mode, because we are getting ready for the Milan Cortina Olympic and Paralympic Games. Um, I want to go as a spectator,
Yeah.
which is something that I haven't done. And even in Paris, I was in Connecticut.
Oh,
And so
you
I was covering the
were.
games for NBC, but I was remote.
Oh, I
And so
didn't
I got
realize
to
that.
watch like every track and field event, which was amazing. And I loved it. Um, but I was still watching off of a screen. So that is one of the things that I've been talking to my sisters about and some of my friends is going to LA and being a spectator, being in the crowd at the Olympics and the Paralympic Games.
I was going to say, but you'll probably be hired to be speaking for the Paralympics, don't you think?
I'm hoping. I
Yeah.
mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
Um,
Throw
it
my
would be
hat in the
great.
ring. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm hoping that because it's going to be in the US, that
You
they'll take people on site and I'll get the chance to be there,
yeah.
and to watch and to experience it from the outside. Because that's been one of the most impactful things of being an employee and working for Team USA is having the experience of seeing it from both sides
Yeah.
and being internal as an athlete and seeing like how things work from that side. And it's been really interesting too, like flipping and seeing from the opposite perspective, like, oh, so that's why they do that.
Yeah. That's so good. Do you have a favorite, most recent book or just all-time favorite book that you've read?
My favorite book growing up is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, and it's still one of my very favorites.
Okay.
I've
Is it
been
is it like
very
a kid's
into
book? A teen book or
um, it is young adult to adult.
Okay.
I read it when I was in high school, and I loved
Okay.
it. It's
Okay.
like the journey of a young girl, in, like, Depression era Brooklyn,
Okay. A tree
and
grows
it's
in
good.
Brooklyn. Okay.
Yeah, love that. But I've been very into nonfiction lately,
Okay.
and nonfiction fiction with, like, kind of a, like, spooky side, like, learning
Oh,
about, like, hypothermia and the blood donation process and all of that
really?
stuff. Yeah.
This is like school.
I know. I don't know. I've never my whole life, I've, like, loved fiction and, like, loved the Harry Potter series and, like, always loved, like, classic literature, and lately, for the past, like, 5 or so years, I've been reading nonfiction, and I've been reading spooky nonfiction.
Okay, she's going back to school. All right.
Yeah.
What's do you have a show recommendation?
Taskmaster,
Oh, really? Okay, I don't know
my
that.
absolute favorite show of all time. It is amazing.
Really? What's it on?
I think in the US, you have to watch it on YouTube. It's a British show. It's a
Oh,
Channel 4 show,
okay.
and they take, like, 5 comedians and
Okay.
give them tasks, and they're all, like, totally bonkers things of,
Oh,
like,
fun.
create a
Okay.
dramatic story about this traffic cone and record it.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, yay.
and it's hilarious and funny and makes me, like, cry laughing sometimes.
Okay, I'm so glad I asked. I have like so much downtime because of this surgery I just had on my foot because I have to keep it elevated so much that I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm watching an embarrassing amount of TV right now. An embarrassing amount. So I'm excited to check that
This is
out.
a good one
Okay.
too. Yeah.
I'm watching Loot, which
I'm watching Loot too!
oh my gosh, do you love it?
I do. I'm, like, 2 episodes behind.
Okay, I'm just on season 1. I just started it.
Okay. Yeah,
And
it's great.
I'm so excited because I had, like, started it a couple times and been like, "I don't know if I'm gonna like this," and now I'm, like, really invested, and I realized, "Oh, there's way more seasons than I realized there were," so I'm excited to have that to look forward to.
Yeah,
I love her. Maya Rudolph is
I
so
do too.
funny. Yeah.
I started watching it as a recommendation from, like, my part-time researcher that works in the
Oh,
archives, and we were talking about Severance,
okay, I didn't watch
because I had just
Severance.
finished Severance. It's
Okay.
very different than Loot,
Yeah.
but then we started talking about Adam Scott because Adam
Oh, right,
Scott
he's the
plays
ex-husband,
Maya's
yeah.
husband, yeah, and she's like, "If you would like to see Adam Scott in a very different way," I was like, "Oh," and it's very different.
I love the dynamic of, like, her with all the work employees and, like, just how
Yes,
their friendship comes about, like, how she becomes friends
it's
with
fun.
each person. Yeah, it's so good.
I also can't wait for Shrinking to come back, so if you haven't watched Shrinking, that's
Oh,
also
I love Shrinking. Is that
yes.
to me, that was the most close to Ted Lasso I could get.
I just started Ted Lasso.
Oh, see, Ted
I'm, like, 3
Lasso
episodes in. It's been my workout show lately.
see, that was my
If I
COVID
don't feel
watch.
like doing a, like, structured workout, I watch an
Yeah.
episode of Ted Lasso.
Yeah, Ted Lasso was my, like, saving grace in COVID. It, like, lifted my spirits so much. It made me so
Yeah, I'm so far
happy.
behind on that one.
So good. Well, you will like it, I think, if you liked Shrinking. Okay, last question I ask everybody is what is your last message to leave with the audience today?
Ooh, man, that's a good one. I think that my general message for all of this, and just my career and everything that I have done, um, is say yes to things.
Hmm.
Like, don't be afraid to take the risk. So much of what I have been able to do and the places that I've gone and the things that I have ended up with and being on live broadcasts and all of this has just been because, like, I said yes and I took a chance. So trust yourself and try new things.
Say yes.
Say yes.
Amanda, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you.